you also warn that awakenings can come on the heels of tragedy.
Yes.
Tell us about that.
Well, look, the best example of what I mean when I say that, look at World War II. The end of World War II, the world finally started realizing what was going on. Most people back then, there wasn't widespread television coverage as far as the inside workings of what was happening under Nazi Germany. But at the end of the war, the United States finally gets involved. Our troops go in. They start freeing all of the Jews that are in their different prisons. And for the first time, cameras started learning, and then the public started learning what had been happening at Dachau, at Auschwitz, the ovens, the millions of Jews that had been murdered. And don't forget, at that time, the Jews didn't have a state. They didn't have a nation state. They were just dispersed all over the world, right? So what happened was, out of that terrible tragedy, sympathies went up for the Jews around the world, and pressure then was put on the United Nations, was put on the United States, was put on Britain. And what happens? They start trying to help Zionism, which existed only in theory, but now it started getting its legs under it. And guess what? 1948, a miracle happens, right?
Yeah.
And a nation is born in a single day.
Amen.
Well,
Literally one day.
what happened, though, was out of that great tragedy, the church, which had been asleep at that time, woke up. And you know why? They saw Matthew 24. They believe this is the budding of the fig tree, right?
Yeah.
And the prophet told us that when you see the budding of the fig tree, all things will be fulfilled before that generation is up. It lit a fire in the church. In fact, today they call that the age of fire that came up out of them believing that prophecy was unfolding before their very eyes, right? The second coming of Jesus was imminent. And so what happens? Tent revivals, tabernacle revivals. Some of your old friends, Catherine Kuhlman, A.A. Allen, whose tents I testified in along with R.W. Shambach, Billy Graham, whose family has done such a ministry to you.
Billy started in tents, too. People don't realize
starting
that.
in tents, right? And about the time that was percolating and dying, about the time it was getting to the end of it, the fourth great awakening and the Jesus people comes right back, and now that's carried us until about where we are now. So now it's time for the fifth great awakening. But the point is that came out of great tragedy. And sometimes the church does not awake until there's tragedy. If you read the book of Judges, God is always pleading with Israel, and how many times? Over and over again, right? And Israel forgot the Lord their God and went whoring after this idol or that. And so sometimes it's just famine, pestilence, whatever, but sometimes it's captivity. Sometimes it's extraordinary circumstances that have to happen before the church awakes, and then it says, and Israel remembered the Lord their God, right? What will it take for us to get there? I think God is giving us a moment right now. The church could awake, but I also think tragedy could play a role in what's coming. Don't forget, following 9/11, what happened? Church attendance goes up all across the nation, people turning back to God. But when that waned very quickly, so did their church attendance. It all went back to normal. So sometimes the only thing that sustains is a tragedy. And I think, frankly, I think ISIS today is more dangerous than they've ever been before. I think when they had Mosul and they had some territory in Dabiq, they were spending a lot of their time and resources protecting territory, right? Trying to fulfill their prophet that Joel Richardson came on and talked to you about, their prophecy, right? And now that doesn't look like it's happening or not going to happen right now, these guys are transnational. Now they're up and they're moving around. And I'm convinced that they are in possession of some weapons of mass destruction. And I'm convinced that there could be a coordinated day of jihad. And I think this is what's being planned right now. So the fires are bad, other things are bad, but I think a catastrophe could occur that then the only upside to it is it might cause people to finally, the church to finally wake up, fall on your face. If my people, which are called by my name, will humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then I will hear from heaven. Thank God, right? I will hear from heaven. I will forgive their sins, and I will heal their land. So sometimes it takes tragedy, and I'm praying that that's not going to happen, but I'm thinking that it is going to happen.